Hello, this is Mike Furman at Iredell Free News. We're here at the administrative offices on Race Street for Iredell Statesville Schools with Superintendent Jeff James. Dr. James, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mike. Glad to be here.
Been a busy time for you. You've just finished the budget season and you're working to get students back in schools. Those are the two main things we'd like to talk about today. Let's start with COVID. You've had about 1,300 employees, about half your employees were vaccinated in the last week or so. I know you're closely monitoring what the state legislature's doing in terms of a reopening bill. You're ready to open?
Absolutely, absolutely. We've been ready to open since October 5th for all kids, but again, we have that Strong Schools toolkit that was developed by the Department of Health and Human Services that still has that minimum of 6 feet for 612, and that's the quagmire and what we're trying to work around. Mike, I was fortunate to talk to the governor's education representative Friday night a couple times. We kept missing calls, but expressed our concern. And one thing I'd like our taxpayers to know, and yourself and the community, we elected to join a group called the ABC Science Collaborative. It is a group out of Duke Medical of immunologists, and they're connected worldwide. So we've been on the cutting edge, and a lot of the CDC decisions nationwide have been based on a lot of the data that has come out of our schools. So we have a data sharing agreement. We share, of course, all the cases. We look at hot spots, and there's times the ABC Collaborative has called Dr. Nutting and myself and said, look, we're noticing that cases are climbing. We think you need to revisit the 3 W's, which of course is distance, wearing a face mask, which some people still disagree with, and washing your hands. So since October 5th, K-5 has been back full time, and with that, Mike, we started out about 82% of the students, which is about 8,500 students coming 5 days a week. We've got up to about 86, 87%. So I think as the inoculations happen and people get vaccinated and feel more comfortable with the COVID-19 spread or the possibility of getting it, I think we're going to see more kids come back face to face. So more and more are making that determination. I will tell you that some of the parents have expressed they just don't want their child wearing a face mask all day. It is aggravating. You know, we've had to change our habit as adults. And of course, we're more than 6 foot away and have an air cleaner in this room. So trying to be cognizant of that. But we would love to bring 612 back. If you watched the board meeting the other night, I've become a little passionate because we have lost 5 high school students this year to suicide. And I'm going to tell you, if you talk to the parents, it may not be a direct connection, but they'll tell you there's a lot of indirect things out there that tie it back to not being able to socialize, not being plugged into the school. Our children are social creatures like us. They need that. And a lot of us have just thought, well, they're just there to learn the ABCs or, do band, sports, etc. They exist a lot of times to go to school because that's their group. That's their peer group. They need that social interaction. And it's disheartening because the political decisions are impacting the lives of our children here in our community. And last Wednesday night, I was lucky to go to Western Avenue Baptist. They hosted a suicide prevention talk, very candid talk with the community. Looked like there was 300 or 400 people there. Appreciate Pastor Mike and his associate pastor that put that on, and his 2 counselors. He has 2 counselors on staff that work with Paul Veach, Susan Powell, and Bill Howe's wife, and Susan, I got her last name wrong, but Susan works.
Susan Toll?
Susan Toll, excuse me. And Susan just does a tremendous job to plug in. And at least, Mike, if they're in our buildings, we can see telltale signs of distress. If they're not there, we can't. And one thing I've said several times, child abuse, 25% of all child neglect or abuse gets reported by the school system. Well, if the kids aren't here, they're dealing with that daily. So we may be their only lifeline. And this is a serious thing. We cannot stand to lose another child in our community. 5 is way too many. So I'm just pleading with the governor and his people. Let our data dictate what we do. Our data is impeccable. It is not being spread in our schools. And all I ask is, let us do a pilot. Let us go back to school. Let us track it very close. We start seeing an escalation, then we can make a different plan. But we need our kids back in school, and we need to use data to do that. Emotions, I understand. We are emotional creatures, but let's use the facts. But again, that's 8,500 K5. We generally have about 12 to 1,400 612 come. So we've been averaging about 55% of our total student body's been coming. We would go back to school tomorrow. Well, not really. We need a few weeks to plan. But our plan was, we talked about it the other night, the board gave me a little bit of leeway. And you mentioned the vaccination. There is the one that has two injections. So on the 24th, we had over 1,200 some people take it the day we had the clinic. And then we had some left, so our central office sat here and picked up the phone and called principals, said, look, if you got anybody in your building that didn't get it and wants it, we can schedule an appointment. So the healthcare system here, Ardmore Hospital, Davis, the health department with Susan Henson has been great. We've worked as a fine oiled machine. When we done the clinic, I actually talked to General Mowry, and he said, I've heard nothing but kudos about how well it ran. We got people in and out. So we let our employees, we covered, and I'll tell you, this shows a great team. We had high schools going down and covering classes for our elementary schools so they could go out and get their shots. I actually heard one of our principals was teaching 3rd grade, so I want to make sure I track those students from now on to see how they do. I'm sure he done a great job and the kids loved it. But yes, we need to get back to school. So unfortunately, we were told, we were thinking that the governors, and the governor and talking to his people, I fully understand he has to make decisions based on the data he's given. So conversation was great Friday night. I'm respectful of their decision. I was told that some of the data I'm getting from the ABC Collaborative might not be completely what all the governor's getting. So he has to make it on the data he gets. So I'll respect his position. But again, with our data, I'm just saying, our data looks so good. Why not let us be a pilot to see if we can get back? That's all we're asking. Let us start, see what happens. But my understanding is there was not enough votes to override the governor's decision. There was someone out that this morning, Mr. Berger said he thought was pro going to school. And there was conversation about taking a second vote. We'll see how that goes. But our plans are, Mike, on the 25th to take a virtual day. We're getting a letter together for what that means for our employees, so please don't start emailing your principals. We're working on a letter right now to tell you what that's going to mean for our employees. But about 10, we're hearing anywhere from 6 to 10% of the people who get the second vaccination are having some side effects. Well, we can't really afford to have that many of our teachers go get the inoculation and then all of a sudden not be in on Thursday, because let's face it, we do have a pandemic, COVID-19. It's not like we have 200 subs waiting to sign on to work because they're scared also. So we feel it best to go ahead and take that Thursday as a virtual day. We don't want to mess up K5, so that Friday we'll be back to business as usual. So our K5 kids will get 4 days that week face-to-face and 1 virtual. On the 29th, if the governor will allow us, we plan to come back to school. I do know, had conversation with at Senator Sawyer and our representatives, and there's local bill being put on the floor to allow us to go back to school. There's always legalities involved in everything. I've talked to our legal staff. There's some liabilities there if we try to go around an order from the governor. There's ramifications. Mm-hmm. We really don't want to do that. We want this done in partnership with the governor's office. So it'd be a win-win for everyone if we could just do a pilot, bring our kids back 6/12, Mike, and let us see what's going on. Because you and I talked, unfortunately, we have 2 groups that are being disenfranchised. Our at-risk kids just disappeared, and they're the kids that really need to be at school as much as possible. And then our kids that are high flyers. Some of them can do some virtual, but they become, I guess, disenfranchised from school because that social interaction is probably one of the reasons they like going to school each day. Mm-hmm. And we had that conversation earlier. Some of our high-flying kids have just sort of stopped.
So question. You talk about we've talked about reopening schools. Let's give people a picture of what that looks like. You're going to keep doing the distancing. You're going to keep having the mask wearing. You're going to keep doing the contact tracing. So we're still going to see people who've been exposed will be asked to quarantine or isolate.
Absolutely.
That's not going to change. It's
No.
not. You're not proposing the Texas model here, where people just can come and go and do whatever they want.
Right. So right now with K-5, we do our best to stay at least, and I will tell you the facts are, but it's not out in the mainstream media, but the real facts are, and again, we've been doing this for about 6 months with a whole group of people that know the facts. 3 foot's about the distance, and we can agree, a microbe can go through this mask, but that's not the purpose of the mask. If I sneeze or cough and expel, then if you're 6 foot away, the chances of it reaching you are slim to none. It's going to hit the ground, and we've also learned during all this food-by transmission. If it hits that desk, the chances of me putting my hand on it and getting it are non-existent. So we did rule that out way early on. And we, after we done all this spraying and putting chemicals down that were probably, even though the EPA approved them, and they're supposed to be environmentally friendly, let's just face it, we probably were better off not doing that, but we learned really quick, so we do less of that. But again, everything we do is EPA approved, whatever that means to all of us. So photomine transmission doesn't occur. So they're really saying 3 foot. If we can stay, so we can do that. We can stay, desks are about 3 foot apart, so we can maintain that. But that 6 foot minimum is what's killing us. If they would just drop that, we'd do our best. So we would pile up in the cafeteria. We would not. We would, we'd have to go back and plan lunches, and we'd probably have to break them up into 4 or 5 lunches so we keep kids separated. And most all the COVID that has happened has been brought into the schools. It happens in the community. When kids gather, they go out. They're going to be kids. And let's just face it. They're going to go out and play basketball. They're going to be riding in cars together. So that's where the spread comes. But we would still do the hand washing, still do the sanitation we're doing. And evidently it's working in K-5. Unfortunately, Mike, the board chair told me that people were betting we'd be shut down before Christmas. We weren't. Now, I will tell you, we had 2 schools. If there would have been one more case in either school, the health department would have said, nah, we're going to have to shut you down. But we made it through Christmas. And again, Christmas, the virus didn't happen in our schools. It happened because we were out of school. So kids brought it back in. So, and not that the COVID spread in the schools so much. It was we had to quarantine everybody. So if you're exposed, you have to quarantine. And, when half your staff's out, you can't teach school.
So, and you will keep a virtual option for
Yes.
families that prefer it,
Yes.
and students who are forced to quarantine would still be able to learn virtually?
Yes, absolutely. So we would have 2 options, A or C. We really can't do B anymore. Our teachers have really been troopers, and they are so frazzled at this point. I can't ask them to do anything else. And we'll talk about budget here in a minute. So we do have some good news for them anyway. But they've been troopers through all this. Our bus drivers have. Everybody has. They've stepped up. We've done things that we thought we never could do. We're learning. But Mike, as the immunologists have told me, if we just think we're one and done, unfortunately, I don't think we are. So everything we've learned, we're probably going to have to continue to put in place. So at some point, we're going to have to learn how to have our society with more and more viruses coming in, because the immunologists are saying COVID-19 is not one and done. There's going to be other viruses coming in. And I'm part of that generation. We wanted a worldwide global economy. We wanted to purchase stuff cheap. Well, we have. So what happens in China today, within 24 hours, will be in our country tomorrow. So we asked for it, and sometimes in life you ask for it, you got it. So all over the world, we are a global, whether we believe it or not, and definitely not trying to get off into the realm of religion, but we are truly a worldwide economy because of the flights and the people transitioning. So again, it could come out of anywhere in the world. We could have a new virus.
All right, let's shift gears and talk a little bit about the budget. Your board approved the local budget for 2021-2022 school year earlier this week. And you've mentioned several times, this is probably the best budget in many years for your employees. Tell us a little bit about some of the big things coming out of the budget.
So I'm definitely proud of the board, and when I come into the county, my goal was my 100-day plan, and I met with the commissioners, have met with all of them, and had a long conversation with General Mowry. I guess the joke would be there wouldn't be any short ones. Love General to death. We met on Mother's Day, believe it or not, for about 4 hours. He had his vision, and it aligned a lot to what the board's vision is, of course. They are a funding source locally. And the concern of the commissioners and the school board to me was, there was a time that hard times come. We had to cut the teacher supplement, the classified supplement. Our busing pay was not in line with other counties. So, Jeff, that's really what we want you to look at and see if there's any way to get those numbers back up. We've actually bumped it up about 0.5% for both, but we've got away from percentages because that's hard to predict. We don't know what the state's going to do, so we've got it actually into a step increase. So we'll put those schedules out starting July 1st. They go into effect. And Mike, before as a classified, you got a bump. You got 2 bumps every 5 years. So you'd have to be here 5 years before you'd see anything local.
Mm-hmm.
If the state gave a bump, of course you got it. But now we've pushed that back to 3 years, and we pushed certified back to 3-year scale. So 0 to 3 years, you make this amount. And it ranges from about, for certified, it ranges from about 6.8 to 7.2, 7.3. So again, next year, providing that the economy's still going good, tax revenues are good in the county, our county budget looks good, our state budget looks good, then we'll look at doing to adjusting that again. And that's one thing our CFO, Melissa White, said, well, if you put a table here, we still have to go back and readjust that table. So that would be the plan.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing the board did this year, Mike, at Christmas for our classified people was give a $500 bonus. And so here's the difference. A stipend, we have to take your retirement out and everything else. So if I give you a $500 stipend, when the check comes to your house, it's going to be about a little over $200. When we give them a bonus of $500, they're going to get somewhere in the 400s
Mm-hmm.
because all that's not taken out.
Right.
So I will tell you, again, commend the board and the commissioners. They were very loud and clear about let's do something for our people. And one of the reasons going into next year, I think we're going to be in a little bit better position to do some things next year. Mike, there were 3 positions when I got here that had not been filled. And, Melanie Taylor, a great friend, I had people come up and say, we think we can assume those responsibilities if we had a little bit more money. And when I say a little bit, a couple $1,000s. So we basically have reduced 3 positions that were benefits, salary and all, about $375,000 that we didn't replace, that people assumed those responsibilities for a couple $1,000s. So about we spent $10,000 to save $375,000. Well, there's, prime time, we've had a lot of talk about it, and it's not being profitable. Well, the director of that's retiring. We're not replacing that position. I've got other people assuming those responsibilities. That'll be another $100,000 with benefits. So going into July 1 of next year, we would have reduced central office another $500,000. We don't plan on bringing those back. The people that are doing the jobs are doing great. It gave them a little bit more money, and that's what we want to do. I will tell you that we're the 2nd largest employer in the county, and if you look at our payroll department, we have about 10 employees. And we've done some research, and if you look at other people similar size, they have a lot more. If you look at my HR, we're going to reduce a little bit there, not a whole lot. Our HR is not very inflated, but even where it's at right now, we're 3 to 4 employees below people that have a lot less employees. We manage about 2,600 employees. So of course Lowe's Corporate moved to town and they took spot number 1. So we're right behind them. But we're very efficient with what we do. And I brought a number out before. We manage 4.3 million square footage of buildings to keep up. The national average is about $6 a square foot. I'm telling you, and we're putting all this on the website. So we're putting it into a format. Everything we talk about, it's on our financial transparency website. So it's all there, line item. You can look and see if if I ever get a raise, you'll see it there. So I'm just picking. And of course I've told people in central office, it's hard to get a raise in central office. That's one of those things. Unless we reduce positions and share. That's about the only way to get a raise here, and that's the way it should be. We're trying to be very efficient and not top heavy, and put that money back in the classroom, Mike. So I can tell you, bus drivers, we raised them up to $13.50. We shifted the whole scale. So we do have some older bus drivers, I won't say older, people that have drove for us for a longer time making $18 an hour. So, and we're going to continue to push that bus driver scale up because we need bus drivers. So if you're out there, we need you to drive a bus. 1350, so again, from 1350 to about 18, it's a little over 18 would be the scale. So that's really helped. We'll look at it again. The board asked me to do a classified salary study. I will tell you that we got a little work to do in mechanics in our bus garage. We looked at similar sized districts, similar economically sized districts and students. So we got a little bit of work to do with our mechanics, plumber, electricians. So we'll be working on that, and then we'll be looking at individual positions to make sure we're equitably paying people.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a lot of work to do, but I'm happy to say it's probably the most advantageous budget for our working people, where the rubber meets the road. And that's what we got to do, is take care of our teachers, classrooms, and the people in our school buildings. There's custodians, child nutrition. We did bring in an outside contracting agency. We had several bids, probably about 6 or 8 people bid on that. The company that we picked was ESS. So as we move forward, not currently, if Mike retired from another district or transferred, we're going to put you back on state. If you're on state retirement, you're staying on state retirement. But as we go down the road, it saves us money to hire people, newer employees, and that aren't on state retirement and all the other things. So that allows us to hire 25 part-time TA. We'll do that in-house. Mm-hmm. But 25 part-time TAs, if we went full-time, I wouldn't be able to hire but about 12. Mm-hmm. So we need some additional teaching supports inside K3. And I will tell you this, and there was a 13-14 and 14-15, right? We can argue all day, and I've been argued with by some of my friends that are very strong Republicans, argue with me that we weren't cut TAs. It's in black and white. And I actually showed a representative in another county. Here's the spreadsheet. Here's where the state cut it. There's no arguing when you reduce my budget by this many million. In this county, I was told about 300 TAs were laid off, and I would hate to have been in that position. Mr. Johnson was here then, to have to riff that many people. It's not a good place to be.
Well, and so your goal with those 25 positions is to close gaps in 3rd grade and earlier.
Yes. And we're going to put them in so one of our low performing schools that has been, that we're working diligently to get out of low performing, is MB Mills. It doesn't mean that there's not great work going on there. So there's a lot of challenges in that school. And Mike, you know this, and a lot of people, we probably need to do this on a radio show so we can get it out to the public. There's 25 years of data that shows a direct correlation between poverty and proficiency. So we can argue anything we want to argue. We can argue vouchers that, oh my God, we need to give kids a voucher to get out of the school. So input's output. There is no machine where you put 10% in and get 100% out. It does not occur. If it did, then Duke Power would be out of business and all the other energy companies. So, if you have a child walk in that's disadvantaged, that doesn't have the supports at home, and doesn't even know how to handle a book, doesn't even know which way straight up, then that kid's at a distinct disadvantage for a child that may have 2 parents, that's middle class or higher, that has input from the community, that has other people to step up and help the child. I tell you, I learned to read in Sunday school class. So when I walked in kindergarten, I already knew how to read. I could read fluently. Well, there's kids that didn't have that. So they were just lucky to see where the next meal's coming from. We have poverty. We have poverty in our nation. We cannot talk about it, but it's there. So what happens is I may come in at 10% proficient when I take the initial benchmark. Mike may come in from a 2-parent home that's got a little bit more money and takes trips outside the county and gets exposed to stuff. Your vocabulary is going to be 25,000 words greater than mine, because my parents just doing what they can to make sure there's food on the table and I have a roof. And so that's where the disadvantage is at. So for a teacher, Mike's sitting in my class and you walk in at 35% proficient and I walk in at 10, think of the challenge that teacher has to challenge both of those kids and to get this kid up. So if you look at our data of our schools, so growth is what's so important. But our General Assembly, powers that be in the politics, want to hang it on proficiency. And I agree, we need a proficient score. But it needs to be more towards 50-50. And I'm not even saying that. If we could get to 60-40, matter of fact, there's a bill by Elmore out of Wilkesboro introduced this session to give us both grades. So at least you would know that if my child's at a lower performing school like MB Mills, it would show a proficiency score plus a growth score. So if that growth, and I will tell you that growth would surprise most people. Most of the growth, the high growth occurring in our county, comes from some of our most at-risk schools. So, there's a lot of great things going on there. So it doesn't matter, Mike, if I take that child and put them at a private school. The bottom line is that child still has to deal with the poverty back at home. And first of all, if I'm in poverty, I'm not sure how I'm going to get to the private school. I don't think they're going to come pick me up. Oh, we do. So we educate all kids. So if you want to go through and start cherry picking out and then looking at numbers, it's an unfair to anyone. So I'm telling you, the best schools you've got in this county are our schools. And don't fault charter schools. There's reason people leave. Customer service, one of them. And I preach that. So, we're not going to fit everybody's needs, but there's 29,000 students in our county, 29,000, a couple hundred. Mooresville graded gets about 7,000 of those. So between homeschool and some charter, there's about 3,000 students that aren't either in Mooresville or our schools. I'd say I like to welcome some of those back. We've done the iAcademy that allows parents to plug in, get the benefits of having homeschool and play sports, be involved in band, do other things that their child normally would not do at homeschool. So I'm pretty excited about this coming year for our employees. I think we've hit a home run. I think the board's hit a home run. They gave me some very clear directions. When they interviewed, they had some clear directions on what they were looking for. I've been in industry. I can pinch a penny. I can look at efficiency. We're working on our transportation department. We've got to get it above 90%. We pay out of our local budget about $500,000 or $600,000 because of innovative programs. We get penalized, the early college programs and the Career Technical Center, anytime we get paid to bus you, Mike, as a student from your house to your school. Well, we don't get paid to bus you from your school to CATS or your school to an early college program. I'm not sure how the state has kept up with innovation. You want us to innovate, but you penalize us when we do. So that costs us locally about $500,000 to $600,000 to have these choice programs. I can tell you this, the IB program, $270,000 in transportation costs is what it costs. Why should we be penalized for being innovative? So our state's going to have to change too. We've not kept up with the times. So, so my hopes are there. I think we'll probably get a little bit more transportation dollars, but we've got a lot of challenges. The good thing about it is, unless our General Assembly legislates it all out, $14.4 million is what we got in, it's ESSERS too, but we'll call it CARES. Everybody keeps hearing CARES, so it's, let's say CARES 2, 14.4 million, but the General Assembly's already legislated we're going to have 6 weeks, and oh, by the way, it's not going to be paid for by the state. We got to take it out of our federal money. Mike, our state has $5.3 billion in surplus. Now, I've heard of a rainy day fund, but hey, that could just about take care of the apocalypse. So at some point, we got to start saying we need a rainy day fund and start spending. We've had some hard times, and I think this is it. But I do take a little bit of offense when the General Assembly decides how they're going to spend our federal money. That should be a local decision. Our kids do need a summer school, but let us design it. But what's happened, Mike, is local education control has really been taken away from boards and superintendents and the people that matter. Common Core, we can have a whole show on Common Core.
Series of shows.
The series of shows on Common Core. Oh my gosh. But again, I commend the taxpayers. We appreciate every penny you give us. Rest assured, I'm a very, very conservative individual. I will not waste money. If something is not productive and helping our children, we've got to look at a way to do it different. We got to make every penny you give us count, because we only have one shot at this. Mike, if you come through my classroom as a kid and I don't grow you, I don't get that chance again. And we've got to close the achievement gap. And we're taking these 25 part-time TAs, putting them in our most at-risk schools, Third Creek Elementary, Third Creek Middle. Third Middle School probably won't get any, but we've divvied those out. We've already got a plan, and we'll look at our budget. If we can do more, we will. Our restart schools, we're looking at those, looking at paying those teachers, hopefully a stipend to entice them to be there, because the work is a lot harder. When you go into a school that has poverty, you're going to work a whole lot harder as a teacher. I've been Statesville High School, I've been at Lake Norman. There's issues to deal with at both, but dealing with poverty, it's not cut out for everybody, and people do get burnt out. We got a lot of work to do. We're moving Presley over to Northview IB. We've got some other programs we'd like to do with adjudicated youth and work with our court systems. But Mike, we both know an investment in education is why this community is growing. This community has had a phenomenal education system. I've been to 2 other counties. If your education system is not premier, you will not grow industry. They are not going to come to your county. The number one attraction to a county is the quality of health care and the quality of education. And I think the numbers say we have a heck of an education system because we are growing by leaps and bounds. But that does create some indigestion when it comes to trying to build new schools, trying to do bonds. So, but if we're stagnant, I've been in a county where the population's decreasing. Property values go down. I mean, you could buy property probably for 1/10 of what you could here. And everybody's looking to get out because it's like the old Wild West towns, when all the gold was gone, everybody moved out. There's tumbleweed left, nobody else. So we've got to continue to at least sustain or grow our county and provide opportunities because, let's face it, we want our kids not to go away somewhere. There's going to be some that do, but we need them here working. We need to give them a skill set when they walk out because plumbers, electricians, carpenters, HVAC, I can tell you there's going to be such a shortage if we don't start getting getting kids technical degrees that we're going to wish we had, because a plumber is going to be about twice what it costs you to go to the doctor. Well, actually, it's about there now. So we've got to do that. I think we're doing a disservice to a lot of our kids that could get a technical degree or certification and get a great job. Great paying job. If you get your welding certification, certain levels, you can leave us with a welding certification, graduation certificate, and go to work for $40,000 easily.
Well, Dr. James, we are out of time. You are the king of the filibuster. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to speaking with you again next time.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, folks.